We're back. Another episode, number 2. We made it 2 weeks, Sam. How about that? It's an accomplishment for us, right?
Man, I thought they would have taken us off the air after the first one, but we came through, Chad.
No doubt. There's Sam Spiegelman, based in New Orleans, and then I'm Chad Simmons, based out of Atlanta, the mouth of the South. Episode number 2, Sam. It's been kind of a crazy week from our first show to second show. I mean, you went through a hurricane. Now in the Greek terms, I think Hurricane Zeta. And then you had some plumbing issues on the side of that due to the hurricane. I had a tropical storm come through. The same thing that hit me a day or so later, or I guess hours later. I guess it went so fast. I guess a few hours later. But things were a lot worse for you. What's it been like in New Orleans for you and your family?
Yeah, it must have left us around 9 Central Time, and then you said it hit you around 3 a.m. your time, and that's pretty quick. That was a devastating storm. It was definitely the worst that New Orleans in particular has been through this hurricane season. Obviously, Lake Charles was dealt a tough hand, and the Gulf Coast as well. But New Orleans is tough, and we finally got hit. It seemed inevitable that we would, and we're still working off a MiFi connection, and it's been difficult. I mean, I think 3 or 4 hours after we got done recording our podcast last week, I had to change one game due to COVID. I had to change another one due to a hurricane, but we were still able to catch 2 games this weekend in Louisiana at least. But, I know there are a lot of people out there that still are waiting for power to come back. So I know that we're doing a little bit better than them, and we're just thankful to be here recording our podcast, Chad. I'm happy to have a second episode with you, bud.
Yeah, let's hope that maybe between week 2 and week 3, much smoother for us. Obviously,
I hope so.
A couple of games where I live, obviously, we weren't here near as bad as you guys were, but had to be moved because of the lack of power. No lights on Friday night, because the power outages here around my area with some trees down and things like that. But again, like you said, happy to be here. Recruiting analyst for Rivals.com. We love what we do. We're passionate about our jobs. And like you said, you hit 2 games last week. I hit 2 games as well. But I guess after our second game, we also went a little bit of trick-or-treating, a little bit of Halloween. I took one kid, my older one was kind of on his own. You took your dogs out as well. How'd that go for you?
Yeah, we did celebrate. Like you said, we got a rare in between the Friday and Saturday game, which was a nice break. It's in a tough year with COVID and all the other natural disasters. It's nice to celebrate Halloween. We don't have kids yet, so we dressed up the pup. He's 9 months old. He had to dress up as Simba, and he looked very cute in his mane for as many seconds as he wore it, just enough for the Instagrammable pictures.
There you go.
And then we had maybe 6 people over just to celebrate Halloween, a small, happy celebration. But I'm sure it was a lot more enjoyable for you, Chad, with the boys. Tell me how that went.
Well, it's all good, man. Of course, my oldest one's 8th grade, went with his own friends in the neighborhood, and then we took –
Too cool for mom and dad nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, it's just fun to kind of get out. And I was probably the happiest about just the people getting out into somewhat normalcy. I think the biggest thing for me, and I think a lot of parents that have kids, was maybe Halloween would not happen this year due to COVID. So, and I know, having kids different than having dogs and pets and all that, but, kids love the moment to get out there and get dressed and hang with their friends and get the candy and trade candy and all that kind of stuff. So I was just happy that, everyone got to get out for the most part and have somewhat of a normal, time with friends and family and so on Halloween 2020. So hopefully the end of 2020 will be better than the first, half of 2020 as we kind of hopefully get the vaccine and kind of start moving forward past this virus. The one thing the virus hasn't done is slow you and I down, or, kids committing, decommitting, playing on Fridays, Thursdays, all that kind of stuff. Let's talk about, I guess, with you first, Sam, touch on maybe the top end 2021 prospects you saw in the week in review last week.
Yeah, the 3 that come to mind, I got a chance to see Sage Ryan before hours before his decision, which almost kind of added to the mystery because Chad, when I went up there driving to Lafayette, it's about a 2-hour drive, and I was on the phone the majority of the time with different people connected to this decision. And I had, on Tuesday, I entered my future cast. It was sitting on LSU for years with the obvious family connections to LSU. But I changed it to LSU when I got to Lafayette. And on my way home, I changed it back to Bama. And guess what? I was wrong. But watching Sage play, wherever he was going to go, you see such a difference maker. Obviously, I think he's the number 3 safety in the country for us. I think he put himself in that 5-star discussion. And like I said, whether he was going to go play for Pete Golding in Alabama or Kojo and LSU, man, he played maybe half the defensive snaps for LCA, and what a difference he made. I think he had 2 pass breakups. He had a 4th down tackle on his first snap in the nickel. I think he scored 3 touchdowns on offense playing receiver, running back, and some Wildcat quarterback. He is so fun to watch. He changes the game when he's on the field. And I think that's when you're looking at these high 4-stars and 5-star guys trying to decipher the best 32 in the country. He's making a really strong case. He was also obviously dynamic, in coverage on he covers a ton of real estate. He knew I was coming up for him because he knows he had a big decision. He, every time he made a play, he looked at the camera, Chad, which I know you can appreciate. Who was the top guy you saw this weekend?
Well, it probably had to be, from a ranking standpoint, Amarius Mims, number 2 player in the country for us. Now, will he stay that high? I mean, it was my first time seeing him play. I've seen him practice multiple times. I've seen, obviously, a lot of tape. I've seen him in the 5-star challenge. I've seen him in camp setting multiple times. But seeing him live play in person really showed me something different, I think, about Mims in a good way, and people want to talk about the classification he plays in, the competition he goes against, and rightfully so. He does not play against the best in Georgia every week. But Mims can't control where he lives, what district he's in, who he plays against. What he can control is his effort and his performance. And he did what I think, or what I would hope a 5-star would do, and that's dominate. Every play. Not one quarter, but 4 quarters, and what he showed me different, obviously he was good in run blocking. He was good in pass pro. He was the biggest player by a mile on the field. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But what he showed me was the passion for the game, the leader, what you see in between plays when he's taking his teammate, putting his arm around him, telling him about his missed assignment, or helping to the alignment, or when they were down by 3 scores in the second half, when his team started making their comeback, to see him run down the field with that fire, with that passion, that team attitude, showed me something different about Amarius. Usually a guy like that plays at that level can sometimes just get bored, because he's not challenged every week.
Right.
He has to go against defensive ends that are half his size. And to me, I look at that as, how does he match up with a guy that maybe would be the size of a safety in the SEC playing defensive end? Is he quick enough to react to that? Can he hold him off the quarterback? Can he run that guy to the outside? How does he move? Or does he fall asleep every now and then because it's just so easy? He can put one hand on somebody and knock them down sometimes. I mean, that's kind of what he does. But he did nothing to hurt his stock for me. Now, it's going to be a very interesting conversation for when we have meetings about him compared to J.C. Latham at IMG Academy. I'm already on board saying I think he is a 5-star type of prospect. He's a 6.0 for us right now. The Alabama commit. Mims did nothing to hurt his stock for me, and really showed me something different that I did not see out of camp or in practice, or even when you watch tape. You don't see all the in-betweens as you do when you go to a game, and you see that emotion, that intensity, that excitement that you didn't see out of Mims. He was a very quiet, somewhat reserved kid when it comes to, his play and the hype of his play. Now, he loves the attention of recruiting, like many do. He loves the love from the fans on social media, and he definitely, has fun with that. But as a true kid, he's very quiet. He doesn't say a lot about recruiting. He never did. I mean, he didn't really hype his announcement all that much. But he committed to Georgia on the 15th or this month, the 14th of October. Last month, now we're November, and all of a sudden it's just going by so fast this year. But he obviously was the top guy for me. I'll touch on 2 other 2021 guys and throw it back to you, Sam, for yours. And that's 2 kids that played together at North Gwinnett. One time, both committed to Clemson. Barrett Carter, still committed to Clemson, then Jordan Hancock, now flipped to Ohio State. Barrett, who is a high 4-star for us, definitely has made his case, as you said about Sage Ryan, Sam, to be that 5-star. For me, it's hard to really find that inside linebacker to be that 5-star guy. When you think about NFL draft potential, just do they stay on the field in today's passing offenses? Can they be a 3-down linebacker? Can they play the run? Can they run? Can they cover? Can they basically be valuable for 3 downs? And Barrett definitely showed that again on Friday night. He's coming off a broken ankle that he missed a month. And then to still come out and have almost double-digit tackles, had a sack. And what you see when you're in person, as we are, Sam, every week, and you're filming the game, to see a player, even if he doesn't make the play, to see him in your viewfinder on your camera, play after play after play, he's right there on the cusp of either finishing the play, pressuring the quarterback as he throws it, chasing the ball down sideline to sideline. That's what Barrett does. Barrett, to me, I like to see him, maybe if I could change him in any way, maybe 2 inches taller, 1.5 inches taller, a tad longer. But, man, he's, 6'1", 6'1 plus, 220 pounds. He can run. He's smart. He can blitz. He tackles well. He's a leader. To me, it's like check, 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 check. And I think a first-round talent. So he's definitely going to be a guy, I think, in the discussion for a 5th star when that time comes. But Clemson, to me, he's next in line to be a great player under Brent Venables in that scheme at Clemson. I'd be shocked if at this time next year we're not talking about Barrett making a major impact at Clemson as a true freshman. He just has that savvy. He's a sponge when he's being coached up. To me, he's one of them guys, almost like I don't want to say it, but like can't miss type kid. I mean, he just has that kind of ability. And then with Jordan, most know he was not playing, opted out, and then opted back in a few weeks ago. So it was a second game back after opting back in. Let me preface it by saying this. I think Jordan's one of the top corners in the country, but he struggled this week. It was a second game back. He was going against Travis Hunter, who we'll talk about in top underclassmen that we saw. He gave up a couple of touchdowns to Travis, but he did have an interception early in the first quarter as well. But it was an up and down performance for Jordan, being his second game back in the season. But when you watch Jordan, you see that length. I mean, he's 6'1", super long arms, great athlete with basketball highlights, throwing down dunks. It's all about, to me, upside. You put him at Ohio State with a guy like Kerry Coombs that coaches defensive backs at Ohio State, and what he's done there, his pedigree, who he's developed. To me, he's another guy I see as an early NFL draft pick. He's a guy that's right now outside the top 100. And although he maybe didn't play at his best and have his best performance in front of me on Friday, I still think, based on what I've seen in reevaluation, I think he still will see a bump in his ranking when it comes to that time at the end of the season. So even though maybe the highlights won't be as good as some Ohio State fans want to see or want to talk about, Jordan's one of the top DBs still in the country. What about you, Sam? Outside of Sage, who else impressed?
Yeah, and just to piggyback off your points, I mean, seeing Mims, you talked about the classification, and I've seen so many over the years in Texas and Louisiana, these smaller classifications, but you got to think about guys like Derek Stingley and Ish Sopsher and Trey Palmer. They played at 2A and 1A. Cardell Thomas, Damone Clark, Tyrion Davis-Price, Tommy Brockermeyer. These are all small school guys that are 4- and 5-star discussion guys. If you dominate at any level, Devontae Smith, I mean, look at the plays he's making in Alabama. He did the same thing against 2A schools at a meet. But, I mean, if you dominate, you dominate. And the second part of what you said about seeing Mims at all these camps and events leading into his senior year, seeing him play in person, I love doing that. I think it kind of gives you that full picture for a full evaluation. And if you play up to you play at a high level at all these camps, and then you go see them in person, you get to see all these reps, the effort. And yeah, they're not playing against, guys going to Florida State or Georgia, maybe against them on Friday nights, But if you're still dominating who is against you and you've proved it at a camp, it kind of gives you the best picture you can get as high school evaluations, which we're making, which is obviously difficult because they're developing and ideally progressing year to year. I saw, let's stick with the Florida State discussion because you did mention Travis Hunter. I saw Byron Turner in my Sunday matinee. And this is my second time seeing Edna Carr, but I picked to see a second Carr game so I could see Byron go against a quality opponent. We're talking about 4-time state champions in Edna Carr. They actually had one of their assistant coaches take the St. Aug job this year, so I was really excited to see that team. And Byron Turner was handled for about the first half. And, I didn't want to say stock down off of, 2 quarters of his senior year, but he came alive, Chad, in the second half. He had a third quarter sack where you were okay, and St. Aug was climbing back from a 10-point deficit. And then he had 2 sacks in the fourth quarter, including the game sealer. And they had no answer for blocking Byron Turner, a longtime FSU commitment, wanted by a lot of SEC schools. And, I've seen Byron play as a sophomore, as a junior, and now as a senior. And I've never been more impressed because he does have a tendency to disappear on occasion, which happens with defensive linemen playing Sunday at 12:30 in the afternoon when they're used to playing Friday nights at 7:30, And I was really impressed, one, by his motor, because obviously, like I said, he wasn't making a lot of plays and he was receiving double teams for a lot of that game, but he came alive in the fourth quarter. Timing of those sacks has to be noted in the fourth quarter and the second half. And then as Carr is mounting its comeback, they're starting at their own 40-yard line, and it's Edna Carr's offense, which scores 30 points a week, and Byron Turner to kind of get past the double teams and get to the quarterback when he did. That said a lot. And on the other side of the ball, this is my second time seeing Destin Hill from Edna Carr. He's right in the middle of that Rivals 250, around 150 or so. And, I've seen him make plays at camps, at Rivals camp, in multiple games. I saw him their opener at the beginning of October, and he was unstoppable going against the Warren Easton defense, which is like St. Aug, just really stout, and they got Power 5 talent up and down. And, seeing Destin, who's probably down to Florida and Florida State at this point. Alabama's still kicking the tires, but I expect him to play his college ball in Florida. He kind of disappeared, and that's a result of St. Aug putting their best corner on him and a safety over the top to take him out of the game. I think he had 1 or 2 catches. He drew a big pass interference call late in the game to put Carr in scoring territory, but against a St. Aug defense that really doesn't have the Power 5 D1 talent on the back end that he usually does see against a Warren Easton or, a Landry Walker or whoever he's playing. I was a little bit underwhelmed by Destin. I know that he's made plays. He's made plays every single week for the first month of the season. So don't get me wrong. His stock is still up. I like his ranking as one of the top 4-star receivers in the country. But he did disappear a little bit in this game. His teammate Aaron Anderson, who we can talk about with the underclassman, who I think is making a name for himself as a junior. He was the go-to guy in the clutch moments, but for the most part, I don't want to say a stock down game, but definitely not a stock up game for Hill. But yeah, for Sage as being probably my top performer of the weekend, Byron Turner with his big second half, and then Destin Hill as the third leg of that, seniors that we're evaluating. Really good player, but when the moment counted, he did disappear, and that's partly his quarterback and partly obviously the offensive line with an offense like Carr's, but that's where we stand.
Yeah, you talk about disappearing. We'll go to underclassmen now, and Travis Hunter, 2022. We have right now as cornerback. He will be moved to athlete, and I'm gonna go on record now. I actually think he's probably better in what's now an offensive-driven league as an offensive wide receiver, and I just think he's the game changer. I'm not saying he can't be an elite corner because he is that, and he did have an interception and 7 tackles and a couple of pass breakups in this game against North Gwinnett on Friday night. But he also had 5 receptions, 144 yards receiving for 2 touchdowns against Jordan Hancock, one of the top DBs a year over him in 2021. And he also had 1 carry out of the Wildcat. His quarterback got hurt, had to come out of the game at the 11-yard line. The whole stadium knew They're going to snap the ball to Travis and let him run around. He goes 11 yards untouched for a touchdown and 1 carry as well. He is a game changer. And for me, after seeing him play now I saw him play opening weekend in Georgia, had 2 interceptions then,
Wow.
2 touchdown receptions then as well. To see him again, to me, he's a no-brainer 5-star. Now, he is lean, around 160, 65 pounds. He's got to add some weight, but the kid doesn't lead the field. I mean, he plays special teams. He plays corner all the time. He plays offense full time. He's on the field all the time. And to see his acceleration and how explosive he is and creates that instant separation as a receiver. And again, going back just kind of how the game used to be won on defense, not
Right.
anymore. It's an offensive game on Saturdays and now becoming on Sundays.
Sure.
Who can score the most points? Bama used to be known for the dominant defense. Now they're putting up 45 points a game. They're known about their offense. And guys like you mentioned, Devontae Smith have changed that. Jerry Jeudy, Tua Tagovailoa, all those guys have changed that. It's about if you're going to beat Bama now, you have to outscore Alabama. You know,
Right.
it's not going to be winning 17-14, 21-17. It's going to be about 45-42 if you can beat Alabama now. And the game's changed. And the Florida State fans, if they can hang on to Travis Hunter, they have a lot to be excited about. This kid is one of the most dynamic players I've seen in around 30 games this season so far.
Wow.
He's a guy to me that is a no-brainer 5-star. I'll definitely make my case for him. He makes his case for himself. I don't have to really say a whole lot. Just pop his tape on. You see it when the film comes out from his performance that they'll be impressed. And his teammate, Sam Horn, 2022 quarterback, finishes with around 350 passing, 5 touchdowns, had a couple crucial runs in the second half. He's also a baseball kid, has baseball offers as well. And some people I know and talk to that truly scout for that is their job, is to evaluate. And also some coaches that offer kids scholarships feel that he could be the best quarterback in the state of Georgia for 2022. We're talking about against guys like Gunnar Stockton, Miles Morris. Is a very good class again next year for quarterbacks. And the thing that stood out to me about Sam is his toughness, because they were bringing the house, Barrett, Carter and company, every play. They were blitzing, bringing 6 or 7 guys every play, making decisions. He'd get hit, get back up. He'd make key throws on 2nd and long, 3rd and short that can move the chain, score the touchdowns, make some plays. And now he can definitely improve on, I think, reading his progressions and not locking into receivers too early. But, man, he's got the arm. He's got a great delivery. He's good in stature. He hangs in the pocket, and a lot of upside there for 4-star quarterback Sam Horn. A couple of quick 2023 guys to know. North Gwinnett D-tackle Caden McDonald already has offers from Georgia, Michigan State, and Syracuse. He had a couple tackles for loss. He pressured the quarterback a good bit in this game. And then a kid I saw go against Amarius Mims on Thursday, offensive tackle from Northeast High School in Macon, Georgia, Johnny Williams. Within 24 hours after me seeing him and kind of putting that stuff out there about him, he was offered by Georgia on Friday afternoon. So first offer in from Georgia. He's around 6'6", 6'7", 280, only a sophomore. So obviously a raw kid and needs to develop physically and fundamentally. But Johnny is also a name to know in that 2023 class. I know you saw some very good underclassmen as well, Sam, this past weekend.
Yeah, I'll go quick on these guys, but Brylan Green, 2022 safety at a LCA, Sage Ryan's teammate. Basically, he's the starting safety while Sage is, on the sidelines taking, as they're saving him for the bigger moments, not to get the senior hurt. Brylan, man, Chad, I don't know. I think I might weigh more than Brylan. I even joked with him after the game. There's not many DBs or safeties I've talked to where I might outweigh them, but
how much do you weigh?
He's about 6 foot, 170, soaking wet. But he's got a bunch of offers. Mississippi State, Colorado, Kansas, Nebraska, and I was surprised for a kid so skinny. Man, he lets he's on the field. A couple lower the shoulder pops, even one hit knocked the ball loose, and Sage picked it up and almost scored. He's a playmaker, and he's physical against the run. I know he can cover. and he's really well coached by Trevor Falk up there at LCA. His teammate, a cornerback, Jordan Allen, very well-built corner. He's been having a really good junior year. I know Mississippi State likes him a good bit. And he only had maybe 2 balls thrown against him against a run-dominated Notre Dame team, but that was 2 balls thrown to him, 2 incompletions. He also made a couple of good tackles. I don't know about stock being up or down, but really just kind of lived up to his ranking as a mid 3-star. And then Fitzgerald West, he's a big guy, Chad. He's about 300 pounds playing D tackle. I know you've seen him a little bit. I thought he had the best first quarter of his high school career. He was getting after it. He was very active. Couple plays behind the line of scrimmage. Obviously, it's a run-dominated team, so you need your big defensive tackle to play a big role. And even when he missed a tackle or they try to direct the run at him to take him out of the play, he bounced back and he fought and he made a tackle 3 yards upfield. Very good, and probably the best underclassman I saw, Aaron Anderson. Chad, I talked about Destin Hill being the star receiver for Carr as a senior, but Aaron has been doing this since he was a freshman. Not a lot of freshmen play for Edna Carr. As you know, they're the power here in Louisiana, right here out of New Orleans. And Aaron is someone I've seen since he was in the 8th grade. And as they tried to figure out the quarterback position back in the spring before the COVID shutdown, they talked about Aaron playing kind of a Speedy Noyle role for them. And that's a big name around here. And Aaron, the last time I saw him before COVID was in the state championship game, and he was both the best player on the field and maybe kind of the GOAT because he dropped a couple of passes that might have been touchdowns if he would have held on. And he spent the entire COVID offseason catching balls out of the jug machine. He hasn't dropped a pass yet this season. And he's a 4-star on Rivals, and he's got to be somewhere in that top 100, top 250. No question about that. He's got offers from Florida State, Auburn, Texas. When I watch him, I think about it seemed like Ohio State that could really take advantage of what he can do in space. In this game, he caught 1 ball beating the defense over the top, caught another contested catch over the seam that probably he should not have caught, but he did, and then saw a bunch of action at quarterback and short screens. And then they did not kick at him, very wisely, St. Aug, with the game on the line, but he did get a chance to return a punt. I think the punter accidentally kicked it in bounds because they had not kicked to him at all throughout this game. And I'm rewatching the tape right as we speak. And if he would have broke that loose, I don't think anyone would have been surprised if he returned it to the house. So he's a fun one of those 5'10", 190 playmakers, kind of like what you're talking about with Travis Hunter, plays offense, defense, special teams, difference maker. And I love watching him. And my thought leaving the game is he might be the most thrilling player in that 2022 class. And that's a really loaded class for me. I know it is for you, but Aaron Anderson, even in a loss, made me think about him as I came home. So that's where I'm at, Chad. I know that we talked about Mims being the big Georgia commit that impressed you, and Georgia's rolling in recruiting. So take me behind the scenes. What have they been doing behind the scenes?
Well, they had a big weekend, obviously. So, Georgia may not be as high in the rankings where they want to be as far as where they want to. It's not about where you start, about where you finish. And the fans were a little bit frustrated maybe during the quarantine, not getting as many commits as maybe a Tennessee or even Alabama and schools like that. But Georgia, they're in some battles, man. And when you play or recruit, for the top players in the country, you're going to go down to the wire and you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. And they've won a couple here recently. And I believe it was Friday, Terrion Ingram Dawkins committed to, and there's a lot of chatter about him maybe behind the scenes committing to multiple staff. So that there was some talk about maybe Georgia or South Carolina. North Carolina was involved. People thought he was going to commit to Tennessee early in the summer as well. So there was a lot of teams that were trying to hang on and see what would happen. Some think maybe he's not done until he signs, which really nobody, is done officially until he signed. But all signs right now point to Georgia landing Ingram Dawkins. Then, of course, on Sunday, 2022 freak athlete Dejan Bowie from Bainbridge, Kirby Smart's alma mater, who actually went to school with his mother back at Bainbridge. So he had a lot of connections there. Compared to Georgia over a long list of schools like Auburn, LSU, Florida State. He could have gone anywhere. Another two-way guy, similar to a guy like Travis Hunter. Maybe not. Dejan's coming off an injury, so he hadn't played this year yet. So hadn't had a chance to showcase his ability like Travis has this season, but very, very similar. They're both ranked in the top 50 in the country or so, and elite athletes for sure in that 2022 class. Now, Georgia obviously wants to close strong like every other program in the country here in 2021. For you, Sam, you have some guys out your way that Georgia's very much involved with. Like Mason Smith, Brian Thomas, Shamar Turner. Where does Georgia stand? Maybe who do they have the best shot at closing with guys in your region for 2021?
Yeah, I think you talked about them not being happy with where they were in the recruiting rankings. A guy like Mason Smith might help. And listen, Mason released his top 5 on his birthday, his 18th birthday. It's LSU, Georgia, Bama, Florida, Miami. Really, I think it comes down to LSU and Georgia, but I'm not going to rule out Alabama, obviously, the way that they're playing right now. And obviously, we talked about Pete Golding earlier, how close he was with Sage Ryan. He's had that same long tenure relationship with Mason. But I really do think it boils down to LSU and Georgia. You're going with the home team. Obviously has some momentum after picking up Sage Ryan, and they're one of the key – Mason is one of the key pieces left in their class. I think they're up to 21 commitments after Sage and Jack Betch committed over the weekend. But Georgia has been the buzzy team with Mason for about 18 months, and that's a pretty long period of time. And that kind of goes to show you how serious Georgia is in his recruitment. The credit goes to Trey Scott, who has been fantastic recruiting Mason and his father and his mom as well. Trey Scott has just kind of kept the intrigue there. And when you're recruiting a kid from out of state, you got to keep that intrigue. And, Mason's a guy that wants to be playing for championships on Saturdays. And I know that LSU is coming off that national championship, and Georgia's a team that we're all watching to see if they make it to the SEC championship this year, as they have so many times in the last couple of years. And not only Trey Scott, but Georgia's strength and conditioning coach that obviously they plucked from Alabama. That was a big win for Georgia in terms of recruiting Mason, because Mason has reformed his body over the last 2 years, and he wants to go somewhere that's going to develop him to be a first-round pick, as we kind of expect him to be on Rivals. And I would not be surprised if he picked Georgia a little over a month. I would not be surprised if he picked LSU, and I know that those two have really been battling behind the scenes. And I wouldn't be surprised if he makes it back to Baton Rouge or makes it back to Athens one more time before he makes his mind up. Now, Brian is a little bit different kind of personality, a little bit different kind of kid. I think he's having a little bit of a down senior year, and I don't think it's more of a result of his quarterback and the team he's playing for at Walker High. But, I think in terms of a in-state, out-of-state, I would say the out-of-state teams are surging right now. I think Alabama has always been if not 1A with Brian. And I think Texas A&M is a team that is playing really well on the field. They have a lot of momentum recruiting, not only in the state of Texas, but nationally, because of their different connections to Louisiana, Alabama, Florida, the East Coast and New Jersey with their different assistant coaches. But right now, I'm hearing it's becoming more of an Alabama versus A&M battle, especially with LSU taking Jack Betch over the weekend. That was maybe a sign that, listen, they'll take Brian Thomas, but it seems the tide needs to be showing the out-of-state teams working. Pete Golding again, working the phones with Brian Thomas in the boot. A&M, he's never visited A&M. The same deal with Georgia. But Coach Hankton is from New Orleans. He's recruited Louisiana very well. He's gotten a lot of guys like Micaiah Tongue a couple of years ago. Got Major Burns late last year. He's been able to come up and recruit them till signing day. So I would say Georgia is probably above LSU at this point for Brian Thomas, but Alabama and A&M battle shaping up. And then Shamar Turner, it's interesting because you hear a lot of different things about Shamar from DeSoto U. I personally have heard that it might just be a Texas versus Texas A&M battle, with A&M pulling that DeSoto card. Von Miller is the big DeSoto guy that's had a lot of success at A&M over the years. But Texas, Tom Herman, the issue with him is job security. So we have to see what happens with Texas and Herman, and whether he'll be there for the long haul, whether he'll be there next year. And if he is, I'll give the Horns a fighting shot. But is it someone like Urban Meyer that comes in and, Ohio State offered Shamar Turner, and, I know they're familiar with him at Texas, and Urban Meyer's familiar with him, so I'd like to see what direction that goes with. But when I was at DeSoto just about a month ago, they were not counting out Alabama and Nick Saban, who's taken a very vested interest with Shamar. Georgia, Kirby Smart is taking a very vested interest. You talk about Trey Scott again, but the only issue, he's been unable to visit. He's waiting till Under Armour to announce. So that gives them added time to see if they can maybe get a visit from Shamar Turner in his camp. And the same with LSU. I know the Coach O, like Alabama, like Georgia, they're talking about that brandability. And Georgia was doing a really good job with that. So Shamar, in no rush to make a decision, probably we'll see if he can push it to February. We're probably 3 months away from a decision. It's a long ways to go, and he's paying attention. Still, my gut tells me it's A&M, and he's not going to leave the state, but Alabama, Georgia, and LSU are on that short list of potential SEC teams.
Yeah, you talk about Turner, and even Mason not close to making a decision right this second. Georgia has a couple of guys in their home state and maybe one in Florida that could commit in the next couple of weeks. We know one for sure is Smile Munden. November 18th, his grandmother's birthday, he will announce, and it seems behind the scenes the most, it's looking like Auburn or Georgia. You can't count out, I don't think, Tennessee. He still lists Florida and LSU in there in the Final Five. I don't think the Gators or Tigers, and really the Vols are definitely trying to hang on. It looks like definitely Auburn or Georgia. Smile is another one of those athletic linebackers, a guy that's been kind of compared to that Roquan Smith type. Now, I don't think he's quite as physical as Roquan was coming out of high school, but he can run like Roquan. He's longer than Roquan. He had MCL injury, so he's out for the rest of the year, Smile, so he's not playing right now, so he's taking his time to figure things out. And as of this past weekend, he tells me, which I believe that at least somewhat, that he's still not 100% sure where he's going. I do give Georgia the edge right this second right now, but man, he's really connected with what they call T-Will. Travis Williams at Auburn, who I think is a great recruiter in this area, just knowing how to connect with so many different players and their parents, their guardians, their coaches. I mean, everyone speaks extremely high of T-Will, but you also have guys like Glenn Schumann at Georgia, Kirby Smart's very involved, and numerous coaches at Georgia are in pursuit. Another one, Nyland Green, 4-star cornerback in Georgia, can play corner, free safety, could play that star money position as well in college. 6'2", super long athlete. He's been close to committing at least 2 times to 2 different schools. Neither were Georgia at the time. Neither was Tennessee either. And that seems to be kind of what he's down to, depending on the sources around, because he does not talk a lot about recruiting. He's always saying he's focused on his season, not thinking about recruiting. He almost committed in the spring. The buzz was around Clemson at that time. Then about 2 months later in June, early July, it was about Auburn. They almost pulled that trigger. Then it went trending more towards Georgia. Now Tennessee's kind of surged over the last month or so. And it's kind of become a fight between Jeremy Pruitt and Kirby Smart. When could he commit? Nobody really knows. I don't think he's going to ever announce a day. I don't think he'll ever even cut his list down. He's one of those guys that probably could be committing right now as we record this, Sam, and I missed it an hour ago. I don't know.
But I like that style, Chad.
I prefer it too, man. I mean, I think it's definitely it's buzzworthy, catches folks off guard, and it creates more of a story, for sure. But I do think, in the end, whenever he does pick, which I do think, based on what I'm hearing, it'll be sometime likely in November. It'll be Georgia or Tennessee. And then another guy in Florida, Xavion Sorey, IMG Academy. At different times, you've heard Alabama, Florida, Georgia. Now, he did trip to Gainesville, obviously close to Bradenton, Florida, a couple of weeks ago. Easy to get to. The word is he could be back at Georgia in Athens at some point this month. But he put out a cryptic tweet, about, that time or it's coming, whatever you want. I can't remember exactly what it said, but for these people to think he was on the verge or very close to making a decision. And it seems like, based on talking to different people, that Bama is somewhat out and it's Georgia versus Florida. And he's been a priority for both teams, and Georgia plays Florida this weekend. Could that game mean anything? I don't know. In 2020, things are so different because kids aren't able to get face-to-face time with coaches. Parents can't get face-to-face time. So any little thing could sway them towards a different school. So what does this game mean this weekend? Could it mean who plays well, who does what, sway Sorey to their school? We're not sure, but I do know Sorey's a guy that, you know, both Dan Mullen and Kirby Smart covet in this class as an outside linebacker, edge rush guy that, you know, a speed guy off the edge for sure. So Georgia obviously has some momentum right now. That's what we're talking about, Sam. Can they keep that, you know, in November and then take that into December when guys like Mason Smith make decisions and so on? Georgia's going to be a team I think in the end will likely finish again in the top 5. If I had to bet, I think they'll end up somewhere in that 3 to 5 range when all's said and done. Could a couple of things fall their way, you know, with a guy like Corey Foreman or something like that, and push them into that top 2? You know, we'll wait to see what happens there. But I think it's a pretty safe bet for you or me or anybody that Georgia will finish strong in recruiting under Kirby Smart. Let's close out this episode, Sam, with just looking ahead to this week. I know for me, I honestly don't know yet where I'm going to be on Friday. Things change now, obviously, with COVID. Weather for you last week, weather for me as well.
Sure.
Last week changed things. I had a game I was looking at for Friday, but a player I was going to go see actually got hurt last week, likely going to be out this week. So I'm kind of waiting.
That's the worst reason to change games.
Yeah, I'm just kind of waiting to see now, just do a little bit more homework and dig on who I need to see, maybe who's in a big game, going to be challenged a little bit this week. So I do know Thursday I'll plan to see 2022 Penn State tight end commit Holden Stays when Westminster takes on the powerful state champions of Cedar Grove, who has about a dozen Power 5 prospects on their team. I just saw Cedar Grove a couple of weeks ago, but you could see them 10 weeks in a row, and new players are going to make plays for you on that team. So There's enough players on that team to evaluate them on more than one occasion. So I know I'll see those 2 teams on Thursday. Friday is still kind of up in the air. What about you, Sam?
Thursday, I'm going back up to Baton Rouge. I'm going to go see Madison Prep against UGA. I mean, we've talked about guys like Christian Harris and Dylan Moses on the show. Well, they got Jordan Gilbert, who, listen, Alabama just missed on Sage Ryan. They're after another Louisiana safety. That's Jordan Gilbert. I know he had a pick 6 last week, so I had some FOMO that I missed his game, but I'm excited to see Jordan. And Jordan's got a couple of underclassmen I got to see at one of these virtual combine events over the summer. The 2 that I'm watching, one, we talk about just seeing an underclassman for the first time, and then you put on the tape. Jaden Osbury, what a fantastic athlete, clocked a 4.45 at 6'1", 200 pounds in the offseason. So I'm really excited to see him play a little bit of safety. He plays kind of that flex tight end role as well. So I'm excited to see him and his little brother, Austin Osbury, is in the 2023 class. So him, and they got a young 2022 running back. I think he has maybe one Power 5 offer, but he's a high 3-star for us. He can catch. He kind of reminds me of a little bit of a bigger version of he's just, I don't even know who to describe him to. He's a bigger Darren Sproles with how slipper he is for probably 220 pounds. Kind of like a bigger, like a smaller Jerome Bettis. I don't want to say a bigger Jerome Bettis, a small Jerome Bettis. But he's a fantastic pass catcher, can run routes really well, catches everything thrown to him, and he's tough to tackle. And he's going to go against Madison Prep, who just kind of uncovered a 2022 Quincy Wiggins defensive end who's making a lot of noise. Mississippi State just offered him. La Tech and Memphis have already offered him, and they got a Memphis commit. Tyrell Raby, who's a big-time playmaker, a little bit undersized, but he's electric, fun to watch. Then Friday, I'm going to go see the guy we were just talking about, Terrebonne, Mason Smith. Let's see what the 5-star does. It's my first time seeing him since the summertime, seeing him work out. And, you know, he's going to go against Brother Martin, who's one of the top teams ranked in Louisiana. I don't even know. They're one of those teams who every year you can find someone to watch, and all you know is they're going to be prepared for Mason. So it's going to be a good test for the 5-star against a well-coached Brother Martin team. at City Park. So you know it's only going to be a 6-minute drive for me to get home. So I cannot wait for that Friday night to be home before 10 p.m. And then Saturday, head up to Southern to see Zachary, young quarterback Eli Holstein. They got a couple of guys who I've seen tape I'm excited to see in person, including their running back. And, of course, Chad, a guy you know, Chris Hilton, Rivals 100 receiver. We got to see if he's healthy. But Eli Holstein and Chris Hilton is a matchup. I'd love to see that connection. I've seen them in the spring, and that'll be exciting against a Scotlandville team who I just put in a ranking for their running back who has been impressive. He's a 10-8 guy, but impressed me with how hard he runs downhill. That's Marlon Gunn Jr. And they got on the other side of the ball Javon Grigsby, really talented DB committed to Michigan State. One of the more interesting recruiting battles of the offseason between Vanderbilt and Michigan State and even La Tech trying to keep him in state. But he committed to the Spartans, and he's that hybrid safety corner I'm excited to see. And it'd be my first 3-game weekend in about 3 weeks. So I'm just excited to get back out there. Hopefully we'll all have power back and we'll have a scoreboard, which we didn't have over the weekend. And I'll have Wi-Fi when I come home to upload the video. That's all I want, Chad.
I didn't hear anything you said after you said Terrebonne because, man, I was hoping you would say that they were at Brother Martin because, man, that trip I've been to Terrebonne before.
Sure.
That's out there, bro. I mean, that's when you lose cell phone signal. It's a long, at least for me, you're used to, you live out there, but it's a boring drive, down there. I mean, and it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, man, from what I remember,
And thank you for saying Terrebonne because they got it. Because the guy you went out there to see, his little brother is making a ton of plays in the same exact fashion, and his name is Jalen Lucas. It's Ja'Kai Douglas's Florida State freshman's little brother. He's a junior now, and he is slippery, Chad. So I'm excited to see if Brother Martin can cover him. But, yeah, the drive out there is no fun. I love it because it's a little over an hour away from New Orleans, but you're driving through the bayou, and you have to know that at a certain point in the interstate, you don't have cell service, so you're not going to get your phone calls. If you get a DM, you might be able to see it, flip of the coin, but I like it. But it is at Brother Martin. But I was at City Park yesterday for Carr St. Aug. I kept asking the same referee how much time was left. I had no idea what was going on in the game. So what a unique feeling, not knowing the score, not knowing the time of the game, but it makes it a little bit more interesting. I don't know. It's Louisiana. What are you going to do?
It's like I tell everybody, I don't care who wins the game. I don't care who scores more points. I'm there to see the players. I don't care if a team's only 10 or 10-0. It's about the talent on the field that draws us, to that game or our attention to them for sure. Sam, always a pleasure, man. I mean, obviously we had a big breakdown of top players we saw last week. I'm sure we'll do the same next week about who we see this coming weekend. Stay safe. Hopefully sunny skies in New Orleans, no storm surges, no power outages, no 100-mile-an-hour winds. Hopefully the rest of the season, hurricane season, hopefully we can get through that and get to a good holiday season, man. But, Sam, always a pleasure. Stay safe on the road, my friend.
Same to you, Chad.
We're out.